Okay, so the first exercise that we want to do is a push-up plank. Now, what is a push-up and what is a plank and what's the difference between them? Now, a plank is when you actually stay like a plank of wood, like a dead plank of wood, in any position like this, horizontal as it can get. Or if you want to make it easier, if you're not able to hold it on the floor, you would want to make it, a bit up like this with a less angle. So with a more angle, sorry. So you want to stay like this on the wall. As you start progressing, you become stronger and stronger with your core and with your shoulder strength. You would want to go down like this on the floor. Now, if you look at this, so what really happens is you just fixed here, okay? So that becomes a plank. Now, plank can either be done on the elbows or it can be done in a push-up, starting of a push-up position, not a push-up. So if you hold it like this, that again becomes a push-up kind of a plank. Basically, we call it the palm plank or on the wrist plank. The other one is on the elbows. So this is the most common one that you would find on the internet and everywhere. So this is called an elbow plank. This one is called a wrist plank. So if you stay in this position, that becomes a plank. But what is a push-up now? So a push-up is when you're actually moving. So when you want to do a push-up, you would want to move with your elbows and with your shoulders. So that becomes a moving plank, and that is basically a push-up. Now you would never be able to do your push-ups on the elbow. So basically the wrist one is one that becomes the push-up. So that becomes a push-up plank. Now what do you actually have to do in this? You can either do push-up holds, you can either do the actual push-up, or you can just simply hold an elbow plank. So either a wrist plank or an elbow plank or a full push-up. So the wall one basically means is if you're not strong enough right now, so what you would want to do is you would want to hold it here like this, eventually take it down and down and down gradually on the floor. Or you can hold it like this, again reduce this here, again reduce this here over time. That's how you start progressing. So you start with the wall, get onto the floor. Now, if you want to do a push-up, just make sure that your arm is below your shoulder level, a bit, not too down here and not too up here, because then it becomes like this. You would never want to do this. So you would want it here, just below your shoulders, shoulder width apart or a bit outside. And just when you do a push-up, just make sure that your hip is down. You're not sagging your hip, and this is what we don't want. We never want this. We want the hip to be as away from the wall as possible, but then again, not as far away like this, and you do end up doing like this. You would want a straight plank, which means from your head to your ankles, it should be one straight line. So you stay here and do a push-up. You do a push-up. You do a push-up. Okay? As you start progressing, you take a chair or a bed or any box, and then you do push-ups on that. So if I have a box here, I want to do the push-up like this. Gradually, as I become stronger, I would want to do this on the floor. So that becomes a push-up plank. Then we have a squat on a box or a chair. So with the squat, just make sure always that if you're not used to squats, you would never want your knees to cross your toes. Now, knees crossing your toes is actually very normal. Contrary to what people might tell you, it harms your knees. It doesn't actually harm your knees. But if you don't have flexibility in your ankles, you would naturally try to go here. But you should make sure that your ankle is on the floor and it does not rise up when you do a squat. Most people won't be able to sit down like this completely. They would be sitting down like this. That's because their ankles are too tight. So in this case, what happens is your knees is crossing your toes. This is actually bad because your ankle mobility is compromised. Now, if you are able to take it like this is okay, without raising your ankles up. So when you squat, just make sure that you're able to sit here tight and straight and knees opening outside like this. So if you're able to hold this, you can do normal squats on the floor. But in case you're not able to sit down with your ankles touching the floor, you would want to do it on a box or on a chair. So for example, if I have a box here, I would want to do it like this. So I would want to, now also for the box and for the chair, just you make sure that when you start, it should either be at your knees level or below your knees level. Why? Because when it's at the knee level, I can sit here without too much of strain on my knees. If my mobility is low, then I would choose this. But if my mobility allows me to go below my knees, I would choose something that is below my knees so that I can go down here and come back up. Okay? Just again, make sure initially you don't want your knees to cross your toes. As you start getting more flexibility in your ankles, you would want to take your knees a bit outside. That's totally okay, and it's good for your flexibility in your knees. So that is a squat. Now what do we have for the hip thrust? Hip thrust is basically a very important movement for your hip muscles. So a hip thrust is done on 3 different ways basically. I've written here 2. So a hip thrust is when you actually create a sort of 30 to 45 degree angle with your knees. You make sure that you breathe into your belly, and then just take your arms just a bit outside, just enough that you can generate some force from here and from your hip. The main force is going to come from here. Only 5 to 2 to 5% is going to come from your arms, okay? And your shoulders as well. You don't want to do it like this. You don't want the shoulders to be down here. So when you do the hip thrust, just make sure that the hip is pushing up and you're not doing this. You would want right from your knees to your shoulders to be one straight line like this, okay? So you would want to do it like this. If it's a hip bridge hold, you would just want to hold it, or if it's a hip thrust, you would want to thrust your hip up, squeezing a hip as much as you can, okay? Not your lower back, your hips and your hamstrings both. This is your hip, this is your hamstrings. Now for the cross hip thrust, you want to keep your leg like this, make sure that your knees are pushing down, and then you do a hip thrust with one leg. That will put a lot of strain on your hamstrings. That is actually very good. So you would want to do it like this. Just make sure that you're pushing your knees down and you use your hip and your hamstrings on the other leg. Now for the single leg, if that's a harder version from the cross leg, because your leg is now not supported, so you need a lot more balance in your core. So you would want to do the single leg hip thrust like this. Okay? It is much more difficult than the cross leg. So you can start with this, progress on to a cross leg, and then the single leg. Now after the hip thrust, we go over to the bent rows. For the bent rows, initially you would want a weight, any light weight, any weight that you can normally manage. You would want to start here. You keep your body straight, pull your chest out, shoulders pulled back. Now open up your knees a bit, and then, so that was the first. Second, open up your knees. Third is start pushing your hip back. Just make sure that your lower back is straight, okay? At the 45 degree mark, so if this is 90 degree, at the 45 degree mark, you would stop. So you would stop here. And then hold the weight, whatever object that you're trying to row with. Just make sure that you pull your chest back, chest out, shoulders pulled back, hip pushing back. So you have a straight line here. If your hip is in like this, don't do this. Make sure that you push your hip back like this, okay? Now at this position, you would want to bring it to your belly, a bit into your midsection, but make sure that the motion is not coming from your elbow, it's coming from the back of your shoulders. So you would want to pull it in straight first without bending your elbows, and then the remainder comes with your elbows. So first with your shoulders, then with your elbows. So it becomes like this, one movement. It does not have to be like this and then like this. Not 2 movements, it's 1 movement. But initially, you can break it down, shoulders first, then your elbows. Shoulders first, then your elbows. So it looks like this eventually as you start getting more momentum and used to the motion. So that is the bent over rows. Then we have the plank hold. Plank hold, as I said, you simply hold the plank movement either on your elbows or on your wrist. After that, we have the squat hold against the wall. So for the squat hold against the wall, you would want to go against the wall with your back on it, and then make sure that your ankle is a little farther away from the straight line or the normal straight line perpendicular from your knees. So you would want to get down, make sure your hips are not away from the wall. You're actually using your thighs and your hamstrings to push your hip into the wall like this. Constantly pushing your hip on the wall and your shoulders pulled back. You can keep your hands here as you wish to. Just make sure you're not using your arms to push down. All the power should be coming from your calf, your thighs, your hamstrings, and your hip as you're pushing it back. So this is the movement. You hold it as long as you can. And one more thing, make sure that your hip is either at the level of your knees or below it. Okay? So once you've done the squat hold, then we have the hip bridge. The hip bridge is basically like a hip thrust. Instead of doing the hip thrust on the floor as I did, you just simply hold that position either on one leg or cross leg or with both the legs together. That becomes a hip bridge, and then the hang. For the hang, this is a very crucial thing that most people don't have a place. If you don't have a place to hang, you can simply get a door, you hold it by the knob, just make sure that the door is strong enough and its handles are strong enough. Just make sure you hold them and you just go back you go forward near the door and then just lean back and hold it, okay? So if this is the door, I'll be just holding it like this by the knob and hang. Eventually, as I become stronger, I'll be taking my legs farther inwards so that the door is somewhere here. My legs are into it and then I'm simply holding it. But if you have a place to hang, just simply go in here and just simply hanging. Okay? Hang as long as you want, as long as you can. That's very, very, very important movement, because as you hang, you're not only stretching, you're strengthening your back muscles right into your lower back. So from your arms to your lower back, including your forearms, your palms, your bicep, tricep, all the shoulder muscles, including your back muscles, your core, all of them are becoming stronger. They're getting a good workout, and they're getting stretched up as well at the same time. So these are for the exercises for you right now. As you progress stronger, we're going to change it.